For most MMA fighters, their careers are a long string of fond and not so fond memories. However, for certain fighters, their careers will be defined by one outstanding moment. For some, it is something so bad that they can never live it down. Or in this case, it is a fighter who has one moment so great that they can never live up to it for the rest of their career. This is the 5 biggest one-hit wonders in MMA. Holly Holm. I've put this at number 5 because, to be fair to her, Holly still has a long career ahead of her. However, even if she had spent her whole career as a champion, she still might never live up to the hype around her following her emphatic knockout of Ronda Rousey at UFC 193 in November 2015. At the time, Ronda was the most famous MMA fighter in the world and seemingly invincible. With millions of people watching to see Rousey run through another opponent, Holm shattered this air of invincibility with an embarrassment of Ronda, capped off by an incredible left high kick, a knockout that was seen around the world and is one of the most iconic in the history of the sport. After the dust had settled from this fight and it became clear that Ronda was indeed no longer champion, all eyes turned to Holly as the next invincible superstar of the women's bantamweight division. However, it was not to be. Since that fight, Holm has gone on to lose 4 of her last 5, failing to defend the bantamweight title even once, and also failing to capture the featherweight title on 2 occasions. Holly still has a lot left in the tank for her career, and I'm hopeful that she'll find her form once again and become a champion. However, it is very likely that she'll always be remembered for that knockout. Gabriel Gonzaga. From one high kick to another, Gabriel Gonzaga was a popular UFC fighter and had a long, moderately successful UFC career. He probably wouldn't be anywhere near as well known though, or as popular if it weren't for his spectacular knockout of Mirko Cro Cop. Cro Cop is a Pride legend and one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He was synonymous with the head kick, knocking multiple opponents out with his incredible kickboxing. The phrase often used to describe Mirko's lethal kicking power was right leg hospital, left leg cemetery. Mirko was supposed to get an immediate title shot when he came into the UFC from Pride. However, he was given a fight against Gonzaga as a title eliminator to familiarize himself with the American audience. Cro Cop was a huge -500 favourite coming into the fight, and the fight was more a matter of formality than anything for the Croatian legend. Gonzaga hadn't read the script however, and not only did he knock Cro Cop out, but he did it with a high kick of his own, beating Mirko at his own game. What Gonzaga did, combined with the way that he did it, has made this one of the most famous knockouts in history, with the UFC ranking it as the 3rd best knockout in the history of the promotion, and Joe Rogan ranking it as his top head kick knockout of all time. However, following this incredible moment, Gonzaga could not recreate anything like that again, losing his title shot to Couture by TKO, and was later let go by the promotion following some other losses. After returning to the UFC for a second stint, Gonzaga's one-hit wonder status was more than confirmed when he lost to Cro Cop by TKO in their rematch. Stephan Bonnar. It's very rare that a loss can be considered a positive for a fighter. It is even rarer so that it was above and away the biggest moment of Stephan Bonnar's career. The season finale of The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 in 2005 is widely considered to be one of the biggest moments for the growth and popularity of the UFC. This is mainly down to the absolute war that was waged by Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar as the co-main event of the card. The two engaged in a back-and-forth stand-up brawl, word of which spread quickly, bringing viewership to the event on Spike TV up to 10 million viewers. This brought in tons of new fans, as well as securing a second season of The Ultimate Fighter that Spike TV promised to fund themselves. With The Ultimate Fighter having just finished its 26th season, it's clear what a massive effect this fight has had on the success of the sport. However, since that fight, the two fighters have had quite different career paths. Griffin went on to become the UFC light heavyweight champion in 2008, and is now a successful media personality for the UFC. On the other hand, Stephan Bonnar went on to have a standard run-of-the-mill UFC career, with his most notable win coming against Keith Jardine. This pales in comparison to the magnitude of the fight that put the entire UFC on the map. Uriah Hall. Ask any non-fan of the UFC and they'll still know who Conor McGregor is. Ask any non-fan of the UFC and, while they might not know who Uriah Hall is, they've definitely seen this knockout from The Ultimate Fighter Season 17. That spinning back kick and the subsequent "Sorry Adam" has been viewed a total of 7.8 million times on YouTube, not to mention the countless of times it's been shared across Facebook and Twitter for the world to see. Following this, people were hopeful that Uriah Hall will be able to bring this Anderson Silva-esque combination of flashiness and power into the UFC with him. However, it has not been the case. Hall lost his first 2 fights in the UFC and overall has gone 6-6 in the promotion. His highest ranking appearance has come at 7 in the middleweight rankings, and he currently sits at number 15. His only sign of realizing his potential shown in The Ultimate Fighter came in an admittedly spectacular win against the high-ranked Gegard Mousasi in September of 2015. However, Mousasi went out of his way to rematch Hall, claiming their first fight was a fluke, and subsequently TKO'd him in the first round with a dominant performance. All in all, it doesn't seem like Hall will ever be able to live up to the huge expectations placed on him following that knockout from The Ultimate Fighter. Unless perhaps Adam ever has the belt.
Sorry, Adam.
Matt Serra. Matt Serra was a UFC welterweight with a record of 4-4 when he competed in The Ultimate Fighter Season 4. This was a tournament for current UFC fighters who had never challenged for a title, with the winner getting a title shot themselves. Matt Serra won the welterweight tournament with a split decision win over Chris Lytle, setting him up for a title shot against none other than George St. Pierre. Coming into the fight, Matt was a plus 700 underdog, with no one giving him a chance against the Canadian superstar. However, against all odds, Matt Serra knocked George down in the first round and TKO'd him just 3 minutes and 25 seconds into the fight. This was only the second loss in GSP's career and is considered to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, upset in UFC history. Following this incredible win, Serra lost his title in an immediate rematch to George, who went on to defend the title 9 times in a row, while Serra only won one of his last 4 fights in the UFC, including losing a rematch to Chris Lytle. While Serra retired from MMA with an unimpressive UFC record of 7-7, he will always be remembered as a UFC champion and one of only 2 people to beat George St. Pierre, the greatest welterweight of all time. That truly is a one-hit wonder.